For 1,500 years after the Mage Emperor's disappearance, the four kingdoms of Darien saw skirmishes and warfare, terrorism and piracy. But strict adherence to Garachias' magical discipline kept borders secure. Until an incident described by one eyewitness as all hell broken loose. This was likely the end of the world. In the kingdom of Ahriman, Emin the messenger approached the town of Abiad, accompanied by a small band of soldiers he encountered on the road. What happened next would send shockwaves through the whole of Ahriman. In a letter to his wife, Emin would write of this: "I could hardly have anticipated the unholy holocaust that was Abiad." For the first time in Darien's history, demonic forces had been unleashed. An undead army had been sent to wreak havoc in Ahriman. Though Emin survived, time was running out for those left in Abiad. They must get word to the coast garrison. Emin tried to calm the panicky soldiers and townspeople.
Friends, fear not the dead. Would you run from some addled crone or a palsied infant? Such is this so-called army. These are victims, not victors. Now bury your fears and get us to the garrison. Emin the messenger, Abiad.
From the walls of the garrison, Emin sent word of the invading horrors to the Lord Commander of the Eastern Realm, who concluded an ancient prophecy had come to pass. He wrote to King Elson.
This necromancer of Teros, King Loken, has gained a new power. The dead walk in broad daylight. The natural order is overturned. This day was foretold in the Book of Darien. Only one thing can protect us. The Heart of Thesh, a relic lost since the time of the Kandra. I have this day directed my most trusted soldier, Joreth of Haldane, to retain a squadron of hand-picked volunteers, to mount a quest for the Heart of Thesh, wherever it may be in Darien.
Scholars in the capital consulted ancient scrolls and tablets. Several references to the heart placed it in distant Varuna, near the city of Lothal. The expedition was soon underway, but Joreth's escape was blocked. Hordes of undead swarmed around the garrison. Across the sea from Ahriman, the seafaring land of Varuna was also under attack. The assailants were monsters of a size and nature never seen before. Behind these attacks was Zon, a land of mystery ruled by Thirsha, the Huntress. This was no random event. It was Zon's task to drive a wedge between two allies, Ahriman and Varuna. Keeping the two powers separated was essential for the invasion of Ahriman to succeed. Creatures of the air descended on Varuna like angry bolts from a thunderhead. Back in Ahriman, the Terosian invaders pressed forward, though the element of surprise was no longer on their side. Ahriman had begun to fight back. The army of undead and demons began to see their first losses. Their leader, the ruthless Zargolin, rallies the restless army.
Deathmongers, death-bringers, rise and offer black peace to the miserable breathers infesting this vile living land. Long live King Loken, Prince of the Dead. Zargolin, Field Commander, Host of Teros.
A town would need to be eradicated. Varuna, angry with the recent incursion, sent an expeditionary force to the Zon coast. In the past, few dared venture there. Those who did seldom returned. This fact was not lost on the common sailors of the fleet. A Varunan sailor wrote in his log.
The coast of Zon came up and we saw some flying beasties that scared some of the younger men. Ailea's beard, not a one of us like this place. The Zon beasts may eat your livers, so we hear. The captain says, not to be fearful. It's easy for him, he'll stay aboard. Sharktooth the Younger, warship Varuna Storm.
On deck, first-timers froze in terror at an awful sound from deep within the Zon jungle. The tortured screams of living nightmares lying in wait. Zon resists Varuna's incursion into her territory. As was the custom before any significant battle, a Zon shaman chiseled this totem glyph.
Our warriors will crush the foul-smelling Varuna boatmen. Fire drakes will fill the sky. If these fools have a scrap of honor, they will cooperate and die quickly. We will sacrifice many beasts, and if need be, our own lives to cleanse Zon of these invaders.
Across the Edamothi Sea in Aramon, Teros' forces prepared a surprise attack from their well-fortified encampment. The Teros commander notified King Loken.
The necessary defenses are in place. This land is disgustingly soft and filled with life. I hate the cloying, almost sickly, sweet smell of the very air in this absurd land. I anticipate nothing stopping our progress toward the capital. A swift cut to the heart will rid us of these self-righteous sons of Aramon. I expect victory to be sudden and without mercy. Zargolan, Field Commander, Host of Teros.
Teros learns of a devastating secret weapon the Alchemist Guild is developing for Aramon. King Loken was adamant that the invasion force take swift action.
We direct our personal assassin, Mirazi Heket, to seek out the Lord High Alchemist in the Kingdom of Aramon with pointed direction to his demise. I have sent an object you may find of some use, a ring of invisibility. O Belial, God of the Void, bring painful death to our enemies. Loken, Necromancer of Teros.
The Nightmare Legions of Teros continue to take their toll on Aramon. There appears to be nothing that can stop Loken's hellish menagerie from beyond the grave. Teros appears invincible now and seeks a swift conclusion.
Our senior warlocks have determined that a monument dedicated to Belial, built in the proper location, will provide final, certain victory for our unholy quest. Greymandros, Wizard of Teros.
But Aramon would meet this heretical construction on their sacred ground with a fevered resistance. On the beleaguered Aramon side, welcome news of hope. From atop the gates of Caeluin, King Elsin himself shouted out the good news to the anxious throng below.
Men of Aramon, rejoice! A mage weapon to win all wars is now ours. The Aether's fury has been tamed, and the reins to control it are now in our grateful hands. Citizens, even as the monsters of Taros darken Kiran's basin, our forces await them with savage new instruments of destruction. We are saved. Elsin, Mage King of Aramon.
Aramon had discovered gunpowder. Across the Sea of Manaan in Varuna, Jorith and his band from Aramon continued their quest for the heart of Thesh. The difficulties mounted. The city of Lothal was already under attack by both Zon and Teros.
We must commandeer a tight new ship and supplies to continue. But having found Lothal under attack by beasties, we are hard-pressed to avoid trouble. Madness and disease has spread into the surrounding countryside. Smoke from the many bonfires of corpses has sickened my men. We must reach the relative safety of the city walls before nightfall, or this quest is over. Jorith of Haldane.
Over on the island kingdom of Varuna, beasts from Zon were wreaking more havoc, but the hardy seafaring kingdom was ready to fight back.
Zon fire drakes and other monsters continue to assault shipping lanes and harass coastal villages, despite best efforts. Recommend construction of shipyards and warships sufficient to launch assault on nearby island. I shall lead it myself, with pleasure. It's time to teach these unwelcome guests some manners. Solon Rix, Commodore, Varunan Navy.
A mysterious roiling of the ocean and skies around Varuna indicated a large group of Zon beasts were headed for the bay north of Lendra. This would be a critical area for the defense of their capital and their kingdom. Commodore Rix was unimpressed.
The commoners see avenging serpents of doom foretold by legend. Every bravo who ever cheated at cards thinks he brought this calamity upon the nation. I see overgrown carp and canaries. Food for cats. These creatures will soon be paraded through our streets.
Eramon has shared its revolutionary weapon with Varuna. In secret shipyards on the Isle of Athri, new warships are bristling with state-of-the-art armaments.
I have this day reviewed our magnificent new fleet. Varunan shipbuilders have fashioned such exquisite and glorious nautical juggernauts, such as to leave one without speech. A contingent of our sailors, having just arrived from Mahari, was caused to go silent in awe, then break out in great shouts of acclaim. The docks are still ringing with celebration. Lord Iljatha, Eraman Fleet Commandant, Varunan Theater.
Mighty man of wars, battle barges, trebuchet ships, all were ready to force Zon from the beleaguered shores of Varuna once and for all. Varuna and Eramon, in a mood for revenge, have brought their warships to the shore of Zon, but they have no intention of stopping there. A lone nomadic hunter from Zon, Mishana, encounters a Varunan base under construction. There was little time to warn his people. Varuna would spill into the interior within days if they were not stopped now. This puts their monarch, Queen Thirsha, at risk. With his fine tracking skills and a little luck, he seeks the lair of the stone giants. A lone hunter stood no chance against the armored invaders, but with the legendary stone giant at his side, there was hope. Only these walking towers of animated stone could withstand the Varunans' weapons and buy more time for Zon. The victory celebration was short-lived. Varuna remained highly resistant to Zon's attacks and began to arrive in greater numbers. It was clear that the smaller skirmishes and engagements were over. The war had now begun in earnest. Zon no longer fought to terrorize simple sailors. They now fought for their very existence. A war council of Zon chiefs is stunned by the appearance of Queen Thirsha. She was rarely seen outside the hidden city of Ulasem. No outsider had seen her for almost 1,000 years. She had transformed over the centuries into something less than human, but more than animal. To outsiders, she was a mystery, a near-legendary figure never seen by civilized eyes. To the Zon, she was no less than a goddess.
These schemers, these thieves who were once my brother and sister, they have encroached on us for centuries, pilfering an artifact here, a diamond there. Now they come in force to take everything from us. We must fight like never before, not as scattered tribes and creatures, but as one mind, one hand, one sword. Thirsha, Huntress of Zon.
The jungle orcs were thirsty for Varunan blood. Zon had taken its toll on the weary Varunans. Back at the floating camp, plans were being laid to reclaim a beachhead on Zon.
It is shameful for a son of Varuna to say this, but our army needs land beneath its feet. Our only hope is in establishing a new foothold on this dank-fetid continent. The new ships have been promised for weeks, yet the weather delays them again and again. We will never take the greater target Terros without them, nor will we leave Zon alive. Lear, send us calm seas soon. Solon Rix, Commodore, Varunan Navy.
Finally, the magnificent ships of doom, as Commodore Rix of Varuna called them, arrived.
These gunpowder-fueled death machines, the trebuchet, the man of war, shall take us straight through the Straits of Girion, clear to a landing south of Elam. The capital of Terros is thus within our grasp. With ships such as these, Zon will pose no threat. And King Loken, we hear the roar of these mighty guns all the way from his precarious throne. Solon Rix, Commodore, Varunan Navy.
The island of Zakum in the Sea of Tapas seems a perfect staging area for a Varunan invasion of the Taros mainland. However, Varunan spotters in observation balloons detect large concentrations of Tarosian troops. The Commodore's response? Target practice. In the Taros camp, the Eramon prisoners had been subjected to sacrifice and torture, all under the direction of Baron Lamar, the Butcher of Zakum. With the camp liberated, a great cry for revenge was heard, both from the former inmates and the horrified invaders.
We had seen some terrible things. Not one of us would shrink from killing the Baron with bare hands, given the chance. Confix, soldier of Aramon.
Across the island, the Baron is barricaded in his fortress, intent on escaping the vengeance of his former prisoners. Back in the Kingdom of Zon, the quest for the Heart of Thesh has led Jorith to the ancient Kandra ruins of Lehun.
The smoke of battle was still in the air. I encountered many dead and battle wreckage, catapults and other battle engines of some use. Also sundry monsters of a size and type to be avoided at all costs.
Jorith was approaching a terrible discovery, the key to the Heart of Thesh mystery. The best hope for Aramon and Varuna was gone, and their worst fear was realized. As a skilled sorcerer, Loken was also aware of the prophecy surrounding the Heart of Thesh. Like Jorith, his agents, both magical and mundane, had been scouring Darien for months in search of the heart. Scant hours ahead of Jorith's arrival in Lehun, their quest met with success. Loken now possessed the Heart of Thesh. Without it, the demons and undead afflicting Darien could never be sent back to their dark netherworld. Jorith writes to the Lord Commander.
Time is short, and I cannot await your counsel. If we are to recover the heart, we must proceed directly to Taros. There I will divine where the necromancer has hidden the thing. I will take it from his bony hands directly if need be. Jorith of Haldane.
Across Vanir's breach from Zon, Aramon had been betrayed by one of its own. Lord Buriash allied with Taros and allowed a massive force to enter via his province. His price? The crown of Aramon, once the invasion was complete. House Buriash had once ruled Aramon, and with this alliance it hoped to regain its lost glory. Even his own soldiers were astonished at the boldness of this move.
I never seen such an army as we had. Quick corpses and banshee beasts joined up with traitors and all manner of lost bastards. Towns were not taken, more like eaten. There's no doubting that the Buriash will put us back on top before the year is out.
With the Tarosian Black Knight and Dark Hand, not to mention the earth-based spells from his acolytes of Anu, the traitorous Buriash sweeps across Aramon unchecked like a poisoned wind from hell. The Buriash-Loken Alliance army plunged forward without sleep or mercy. Their target was the holy seat of Narmer and the splendorous temple of Anu.
The ancient temple before us represents an evil past, and the old fearful ways of Ilsen. It must die for us to live. Join me in my quest for a new, stronger Aramon, where the gift of mana is enjoyed by all, not just a distant, immortal king. We are the future. We are the brave new order. Lord Buriash, Salvator of Aramon.
Narmer seemed helpless to resist the forces engulfing it. The two sides seemed to have a knife poised at each other's throats. Back in Taros, Aramon's invasion is proceeding to plan. Under the leadership of young Lord Durnhest, preparations are being made for the siege of Shekelesh.
We are all afraid at night. The enemy creatures make such odd noises. We have lost several of my troop to desertion. It is not a land fit for humans.
The first order of business was the pacification of the surrounding countryside. Durnhest's army mounted a massive offensive to rid the area of opposition. Young Durnhest presses on post-haste toward the key city of Shekelesh. The campaign continued smoothly as the Tarosians scatter in the wake of Aramon's advance. Outriders and scouts report puzzling activity in the enemy camp.
This Loken, the grave disturber, makes a strange general. I pressed on a league or so ahead of our main force and infiltrated a zombie contingent by adopting like garb and manner. If the soldiers of Aramon appeared in the place, we were instructed to quickly leave, giving the invaders free rein. Unknown, spy of Aramon.
Lordling Durnhest was disappointed at the ease of conquest the scattered zombie forces of Taros presented. This great military undertaking, he complained, has been just that. Bury the dead, bury the dead. These words would soon prove to have two meanings. The Lord Mayor of Shekelesh deferred to Aramon's overpowering force and immediately surrendered to Lordling Durnhest. The forces of Aramon marched into a city nearly empty of inhabitants. Nevertheless, young Durnhest seized the opportunity to glorify his victory.
By the silver hand of Anu, Lord of Light, I claim these blasted lands for Ilsen, Mage King of Aramon, Slayer of Monsters, Forgiver of Heresies, Champion of Morality, and Collector of Tribute. Lord Durnhest, Noble of Aramon.
But the empty city begged an unasked question. Where had everyone gone? Taros had maneuvered the Aramon army into the confining walls of Shekelesh. Aramon pacification patrols began scouring the grounds outside the city walls.
Our nobles were inside, feasting and drinking. But outside, we could smell them out there, the things. Had to be thousands. Enough to make your skin crawl.
Tarosian death squads ringing the city now moved silently to liquidate these patrols. The attack, when it came, had to be a complete surprise. The Tarosians descend on Shekelesh with an inhuman fury. There seems no end to their numbers, no limit to the carnage. This day becomes known as the Slaughter of Shekelesh, a day of celebration. Amidst the smoking ruins, this letter from a worried soldier survives.
Outside the walls of the city, I can hear death screams now and bellowing monsters in full attack. I will not return from this one, that's sure. We're all surrounded and 10 to 1 outmanned. It was a bad plan, coming here like this. Confex, soldier of Aramon.
Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Zon, the strife in Aramon and Taros has cut supply lines to the struggling Varunans. Patrols into the dense wilderness of Zon seldom return.
We know what the boatmen think of us. They think we are only animals, each fighting to protect itself, but not a true army. But all our tribes stand together now. Kinik and Ihom were once enemies. Today, one baits the snare, while the other draws tight the string. These northern people are angry and fearful. Who then is truly the animal?
Zon must now get the measure of the Varunan encampment's defenses. The Uru tribe is legendary for their hunting abilities in which they stealthily gain access to prey.
One quiet man can see what a vast army cannot. Troyus, Uru warrior.
Once more, the indigenous skills and resolution of the Zon are put to the test against the invaders from Varuna. Zon now moves on a massive scale to rid itself once and for all of the Varunan pests. The gun-bearing warships are particular targets. The Varunan commander summed it up.
This is cannon and steel versus animals and arrows. Why bother with strategy?
He was about to learn why. Zon's humanoid and beast armies swept toward the coast installations with a vengeance. Back in Aramon, the traitorous Lord Buriash now demands unconditional surrender at the gates of the capital. For this, he will guarantee the safety of the population. A skeptical King Elson will have none of it. He calls Emin the messenger to his chamber.
I have this hour been commissioned by the king. I am tasked to assassinate the traitorous Lord Buriash by means of delivering a message with poisoned dagger in place of surrender. Be brave, inasmuch as I will be foolish enough to make the attempt. Your husband, Emin.
Dagger in diplomatic pouch, Emin enters the camp under the intense scrutiny of the traitor's bodyguards. With Buriash dead, the Tarosian troops and creatures turned on their one-time allies. Towns and castles freshly conquered were once again awash with fire and blood. Back in Buriash's home province, the common folk had had enough. Anger and shame over their lord's cooperation with Taros, and the new attacks by wandering bands of undead prompt the common folk to take arms. A group of farmers, led by a single determined woman, Ayla Goss, are on the long march.
Our lord betrayed Aramon, but shall we? We will not serve the dead, the demons, the yoke of evil that Buriash has put on. Let us storm the gates of House Buriash and end this plague on our fair land. Ayla Goss.
Bereft of armament, the brave insurgents hope to swell their ranks and prevail through sheer numbers. Jorith reaches the vicinity of Elam, the capital of Taros. Through stealth and interrogation of a captive zealot trooper, he discovers the Heart of Thesh is kept in a heavily guarded compound outside the city walls. This is the Temple of Belial.
The objective is to penetrate the temple's perimeter by means of stealth, as confrontation would prove folly. Once inside, we may have a fair measure of battle. Jorith of Haldane.
Jorith observes the temple patrols are frequent but regular. Jorith had succeeded. With the artifact in hand, he journeyed back from the hellish land of Taros and across the sea to the island of Estoril, the ruined capital of the lost Kandra. It was here that a strange and dangerous ritual would be attempted. The priests of Anu, after sifting through many ancient tomes, discovered the true purpose of the Heart of Thesh. The heart could summon the mighty sacred dragons of Anu. This was the means of their delivery. First, the priests must attempt a weaving of forces that hasn't been attempted in over 1,000 years. Even the mage emperor Garakias had never mastered this treacherous spell. The gathered priests and mystics decided that where one mage had failed, a group might succeed.
We will attempt a sacrifice of animals in the sacred circle, in the presence of the Heart of Thesh. If we fail, our universe is forever in the hands of darkness. Dumago, High Priest of Anu.
The sacred dragons, summoned by the Heart of Thesh, begin to free Ahriman from the black grip of Taros forever.
The dragons of Anu carry on their splendorous wings the soaring hopes of good men everywhere. And where their shadows cast out our enemies, and favor fair Ahriman to a kinder destiny than Locken's black rule. Dumago, High Priest of Anu.
No one had ever seen dragons fighting on the side of righteousness before. The forces of Taros scattered in terror. In Zon, the beleaguered forces of Varuna look to the sky. At first they are terrified, thinking a new monster has arrived to decimate them. Then they hear a collective wail from the surrounding beasts and hunters. As if by instinct, the Zon know the great flying creatures have come for them. They will remember this day for generations in song and hushed stories around their fires. The dragons of Anu descend, burning their way into history. The dragons, the uprising in Ahriman, and Elsin's appearance on the battlefield has tipped the scales of battle in favor of the Ahriman-Varuna alliance. Here in Zon, all pretense of organized resistance falters, and increasingly the tribes turn to a single desperate goal.
One heart among us holds the spirit, voice, and blood of our ancestors. All tribes of Zon must be as roots of one tree and protect Queen Thersha, as Tammuz, goddess of the hunt, protects us all. Zon, tribal leader.
The Zon forces collapse around Queen Thersha's royal standard and slowly retreat back into the jungle. The taste of war had soured. Their only goal now was to protect their queen and vanish into the enfolding safety of Zon's interior. Varunan aerial spotters are keeping close watch on the escaping Zon forces, allowing ambushes to be set for them in clearings. As the Zon warriors protecting the Huntress make for the Haemus Mountains, they hope to snare Varunans in their own deadly traps. The battle to protect the Queen grows more fierce. Ahriman and Varuna sweep across Darien. The remaining undead in Ahriman are quickly dispatched. The few fanatics still loyal to Buriash are captured and soon put to work rebuilding the cities they had helped to destroy. Zon is in retreat, and Varuna is once again in control of the sea. One final obstacle remains. Locken, the necromancer, king of Taros, is waiting behind the walls of his capital, Elam. As the siege begins, Locken's chief sorcerer, Delos, passes a cryptic order to his elite squad of wizards.
Our master has commanded us to convey this precious cargo away from danger. Your lives, the very living essence of each of you, is as nothing to the safety of this. Delos, chief sorcerer to Locken.
A curious band of warriors, expert mages, and their beastly minions prepare for the smuggling of a mysterious bottle right through the iron grip of Elsin's army. The leaders of the allied forces of Aramon and Varuna fear that Loken has escaped their noose, but sorcerers divine his presence still within the city of Elam, and so the noose draws even tighter. The walls of the city must be breached. The combined forces of Aramon and Varuna hold the land and passes near the coast, and it is up to the escort carrying Loken's precious secret cargo to find a way through the enemy lines. Rantel, a royal sorceress escorting the wagon, speculates on the mission in her journal.
The journey from Elam was beset with dangers. Our powers are taxed to the limit to defend this mysterious cargo. What can it be that Loken values so highly? I would attempt a divination were I not so sure that the others would detect it and thwart me. We have no choice but to push onwards to the sea. Rantel, sorceress to the crown of Taros.
The smugglers must create a diversion for the fleet blocking the road to their ship. The central forces of the Aramon-Varunan alliance continue to press forward to the very heart of Elam. Now they must breach the inner fortress. Victory is in their grasp, but the besiegers are wary. What tricks did Loken have in store for them? Meanwhile, the Mage Brigade, bearing the mysterious bottle that Loken had sacrificed so much to protect, draws near the ship of a smuggler. The captain sees only a wealthy client with contraband to be moved, never realizing the magnitude of his cargo. Captain's log.
We remain cloaked, yet we will be quickly spotted if drawn too closely to the ships of Aramon and Varuna. This cargo arriving, this strange Loken-crafted bottle, upsets the whole crew. They fear it is an evil thing and can bring only ill seas and serpents to our voyage. Even our destination is unknown. The bottle is to hold that key as well. Captain Belden, RTS, Sea Shadow.
Loken's defenses were melting away, but he had preserved a truly terrifying host of allies for his final confrontation with his brother and sister, King Elsin and Queen Kyrena. When commanded by them to surrender, Loken replies with his customary confidence.
Elsin, Kyrena, the good children, still following the useless law of a long-forgotten king. I have discarded the superstitions of the old man. I have gained power and wisdom beyond your comprehension. I will soon throw off the shackles of this backward land, and even the heavens will quake at my command. A pity you have wasted your immortality seeking the praise and adulation of these pathetic mortals. You could have cast them off like so many fleas and joined me on a higher plane of consciousness. You have wasted your lives. I will therefore take them from you.
And to the north, in the Sea of Mokena, an icy gale drives the lone schooner, Sea Shadow, to the end of the world. To the end of the old world.
The pilot swears the very stars themselves are shifting. The magnetic stone spins like a dervish. Many good sailors have gone mad and stepped overboard for curing. The wheel spins with its own mind now, and steers for strange black clouds at the north horizon. Except for my captaincy, I would follow my men and seek the mercy of those black waves. Captain Belden, RTS Sea Shadow.
In the aftermath of the Great War, the people of Darien hoped for a swift return to normalcy. Bounty hunters continue to root out pockets of resistance, scouring even the remotest corners of Aramon. Our true story begins ages ago with the mage emperor Garakaios, the great unifier of Darien, who abdicated his throne to his children. Garakaios had grown weary of the deathless eternity that his life had become. In a stunning burst of magic, he traded immortality for one last mortal lifetime. Slipping around the palace guards, Garakaius departs Darien forever in a small fishing boat. He navigates the treacherous Kuvera Straits, eventually reaching the land of Creon, far to the northwest.
As ruler of Darien, my magic cheated death, yet it also robbed my life of pleasure. I gave all for this ripe adventure leading to a happy end, and I shall make of this barren waste of Creon a fitting nation to build my burial tower. They have metal, I gave them metallurgy. They have alchemy, they will have chemistry. They have superstition, I give them science. Yet I tremble for those magic-besotted children of mine who in centuries hence must gaze on the blazing comet of Creon's rise. But enough of things to come. Father Time, father to us all, shall see it all dust, and castles, and dust again. Garakaius, former Mage Emperor of Darien.
The distant, secretive land of Creon was the true source of the gunpowder that turned the tide of the war against Loken. But victory has a price, paid in blood and in gold. Elson of Aramon had shared in triumph over Loken and agreed to pay for Creon's invention. But gold draws raiders as blood draws sharks. No predator was more dangerous than a renegade group of fanatical Tarosians called the Cult of Loken, led by the fearsome wizard Helligrin.
Our magic has divined Varunan ships bearing gold from Aramon. Loken willing, our dark ships strike quick and true, and Varunan flotsam shall bear crimson witness to the hungry sea. Helligrin, priest-captain cult of Loken.
The payment of gold from Varuna never reached Creon. Sent to investigate, Captain Rettenbrass of Varuna found only wreckage and a captain's log noting the approach of unfamiliar black ships. Creon also decides to investigate the delay in their expected payment. When the flotilla of their dark hulls suddenly appears on the horizon, Rettenbrass responds swiftly.
The foremast hand has spotted the enemy. I am beating to quarters and engaging them directly. The favor of Lear be with us. Captain Rettenbrass, Her Majesty's ship, Perilous.
Rettenbrass had unwittingly struck a spark that would ignite the world. Creon responded with outrage and an intimidating combat-hardened flotilla. Varuna's battle-wise leader, Karenna, had no desire to confront the unknown strength of Creon so soon after a devastating war. She ceded the northwestern island of Kaura to Creon control, ostensibly as a gesture of peace. But the people of Kaura rose up in spontaneous rebellion against the iron hand of their new masters, even as the voice of their new colonial ruler was heard throughout the land.
People of Kaura, rejoice! Your bondage to the vile superstitions of magic is ended, and an age of reason and enlightenment is begun. Join us, and the streets will be paved with Creon gold. Defy us, and they'll be cobbled with bones.
But the rebels would have none of it. Meanwhile, Elson of Aramon was furious with Karenna, all the more so because Kaura had at times been a part of his kingdom. He sent her a message by Spyhawk.
Sister Karenna, I would apprise you of my latest observer's report. The Aramon gold entrusted to your care was blundered away to privateers. Then your incompetent underlings compound your error with an attack on a great sovereign state with untested resources. At the least, you have stupidly put us all at the mercy of their gunpowder. As to the Aramonian protectorate of Kaura, how dare you offer our land to atone for Varuna's sins of state? Elson, Mage King of Aramon.
Elson's fury with Karenna and Varuna was an ill-kept secret and a popular sentiment. A commander in Mahari decided to seek his sovereign's approval with an attack upon Varunan ships at anchor in port. One Varunan ship captain fought desperately to win passage to the open sea. Ages earlier, Garakaius had mused upon the impetuous nature of his newly adopted nation.
How these warriors of Creon remind me of my daughter Karenna in her youth. Never far from righteous anger, ever confident she was in the right, and willing to thrash anyone who disagreed. With my guidance to temper their steely spirit, these Creonite upstarts will surely rule the western lands and seas in a few generations. Garachaius, first sage of Creon.
His words were more prophetic than he dreamed, as this urgent dispatch from Varuna's monarch showed. People of Kaura, know that Varuna is with you in this desperate hour. Together we will surely throw these tin gods back into the icy Mother Sea to rust and ruin. Stand together and resist as long as you can. I will send aid as quickly as possible. Karena, Sea Mage of Varuna. In Taros, Heligrin, leader of the outlawed cult of Loken, continues his plan to rebuild Taros to its former glory under Loken. Drawn by urgent voices that he alone could hear, he and his band arrive at Crone's Crook to discover unfamiliar soldiers and strange creatures picking over the wreck of the long-lost Sea Shadow, the ship that had carried a mysterious artifact created by Loken himself before his death.
What manner of hell hags are these? I fear the worst at this wretched sight. Our monarch's bottle must not fall into the hands of strangers. We will engage and subdue these wretched vultures. Interrogation tools applied to survivors may gain some advantage. Heligrin, Priest Captain, Cult of Loken.
As it happened, the Cult of Loken were too late to capture their precious bottle at the wreck and turned elsewhere in their quest. Meanwhile, it grew clear that Kauran resistance against the forces of Creon would collapse without massive support. Karena sent an urgent entreaty to Elson. Elson, my brother, perhaps we have shown less honor to Aramon's claims to Kaura than was warranted. I propose that by joint decree it be made a free port, and both our lands shall prosper from the trade benefits thus derived. But first, as in the Great War just past, we must close ranks again. We must wage a true war against these scheming invaders from Creon. We must unite against them as we did against Loken, and with the same resolve, achieve like result. Karena, Mage Queen of Varuna.
So be it, sister. Let expediency overcome discord. We are once again united in battle. Elson, Mage King of Aramon.
Karena and Elson gained a temporary advantage against their new enemy, but remained puzzled as to their history and their hatred of all things magical. The solution lay far in the past, yet much closer to home than they could have imagined.
Now we set forth on our greatest conquest. The first sage of old warned us never to tamper with the fabric of existence. These weirds who harp reality with foul magics must be put down with honest blades and bullets. Menelaus, 27th Sage of Creon.
Their awe-inspiring iron fleet hidden just offshore, the Creonites suddenly fall upon Kaura in a dark tempest of steel, lit by the orange lightning of cannon fire. Creon's victorious forces proceeded to the mainland of Aramon, thus pitting the adoptive heirs of Garachaius against his natural-born son, a battle he foreshadowed centuries earlier in his journal.
I have gained the respect of the people of Creon, and they have named me Sage, ruler of the land. I am proud of what they have accomplished with logic and reason, using mana only as a resource. I cannot help but speculate who would prevail if these newfound principles of science are someday tested against the boundless forces of magic. Garachaius, first sage of Creon.
That test was now at hand. Creon's successes against Aramon continued as they put to use the weapons created through the scientific principles. Garachaius had fostered and encouraged this practice long ago.
The ingenuity of my new subjects continues to surprise and impress me. Their experiments with arbalists and ballista have created engines capable of throwing canisters great distances. For ammunition, they have created a substance that burns hot and fierce on all it touches. Lately, I stand on an overlook simply to watch it wreak havoc and mayhem amongst our enemies. Garachaius, Sage of Creon.
The ingenious and menacing war toys of Creon tore through the Mage Emperor's first domain like the blades of a slaughterhouse.
Battle orders to the 3rd Royal Command of Aramon. You shall make a brave stand at King's Barrow Hills. The setbacks of Pharaohdon and Guest cannot, must not be repeated on this hallowed ground. This metal juggernaut will be stopped, and stopped here. Wherever free men shall gather on this day in Ahriman, they shall suffer regret they did not witness the valor of seasoned soldiers laying waste to the clunking junk heaps of Creon. Ahriman must prevail. Elson, Mage King of Ahriman.
In Taros, a group of bounty hunters from Ahriman ran into an astonishing sight.
Them devil maggots at Taros was a sight I reckoned was banished from Darien forever. My company was there at the siege of Elam, and I recognized the flame sign of Locken on their rope things right off. Well, I was thinking, I'll have the glory of the last blood of the war, not to mention a snogger and fat bounty, as the locals would say. Matero the Cleaver, soldier of fortune.
The bounty would prove fat indeed. The bounty hunters recover gold from the cult, freshly stamped by the Royal Exchequer in Keluan. Once news of this reaches Elson, he is stunned to realize that his gold payment to Creon for their gunpowder was intercepted by Tarosians still loyal to Locken. The premise for war with Creon was false. Yet how to mend fences now? Varuna had lost the gold, and then mistakenly attacked Creonite ships, sealing their fate with the Iron Machine to the west. Only a bold and risky plan might succeed, to Ahriman's gain.
By decree, generals of the Ahriman Guard, I grant command of the home forces to you. As for me, I will personally lead an elite expeditionary force equal to 4 raider battalions into the caverns of Bis, which, if the Miners' Guild can be trusted, will see us through the mountain to the very heart of Creon. But look to the lords of the north. I fear they may use my absence to bring ill to Ahriman. Elson, Mage King of Ahriman.
Elson's worries proved to be well-founded. The lords of the north declared common cause with Creon and took the field against what remained behind of the Ahriman army and irregular loyalist units. Their common sigil being golden, reminiscent of the livery of their Creonite allies, they were quickly labeled Yellow Jackets by the forces of Ahriman.
I reckoned that going for glory into the caverns abyss was naught but rushing into an open grave. My assignment back home seemed a dream for sure. But when these blasted Yellow Jackets swarmed upon us, I had my doubts I'd cheated fate. And rounding up deserters or bringing in a thief gone to ground, that's one thing, but this was outright war. Brother against brother. Mathera, 2nd Squad of Lord Elson's daggers.
Hellegrin of the Cult of Locken had ruthlessly interrogated Creonites captured at the wreck of the Sea Shadow. From their agonized confessions, he learned of the bottle and wrote of the next steps for his fanatical followers.
The facts are simple. The object of our great quest is in the hands of the leader of these ironclad savages. However, we lack the great ships to weather storm and cannon across the well-patrolled seas of Darien. Thersha of Zon may agree to provide transport by air, but she is well hidden in her thick jungles. We must first fight the weird tribes of Zon to gain her audience. Hellegrin, Priest Captain Cult of Locken.
Under the mountains, Elson's forces make their way through fierce gauntlets of nocturnal horrors, only to find a vast subterranean river blocking their path. But a chance discovery suggested the worst was yet to come. Just after we found the big river, I stumbled over a hunk of rock that turned out to be a miner, or what used to be. I informed the captain at once. There was not much left to claim as human, ate by a devil-jawed beast from the look of the pieces. Some coins had come out of his pack, scattered about. Captain said they looked Creon, and all hell broke then, 'cause he was spying for sure. We was known to the enemy now. Company's coming. Dowser Huck, foot soldier of Ahriman. Creon now is poised to invade the main island of Vidara at the very heart of Varuna. A desperate Queen Karenna sends an envoy to the Sage of Creon to sue for peace.
Karenna, your emotional arguments hold no sway with those who revere logic and science above magic and superstition. We need no such primitive belief systems, no crutches to advance our superior civilization across Darien. We shall, however, grant you swift return of your envoy, as soon as the glacier bears have done with her. The remaining portions will be served to you cold as your unconditional surrender entree. Menelaus, 27th Sage of Creon.
The fleet of Varuna is decimated in its final attempt to break the Creonite supply chain. Now Karenna summons her deepest powers and conjures a magical vision of her brother Elson on his dangerous quest in the caverns of Bis. In this revelation, she sees her only hope lies in joining forces with Elson in Creon to strike a magical death blow to the very heart of their common enemy. She issues a farewell decree to her people. Beloved children of Varuna, I have only one hope. I must combine my power with that of my brother Elson. Lear grant that we break the grip of this metal fist before it crushes us all. I go now to find a break in this wall of iron that surrounds me. From there, I will find my way to Elson and seek a shining hope for us all. Karenna, Mage Queen of Varuna. Helligren's mission to Thersia was a success. The mysterious Queen of the Air agrees to provide winged transport to Creon. Thersia and members of the Cult of Loken now traverse the treacherous updrafts over Ulin's fingers. Even the fervent cultists find reason to doubt their quest and their enigmatic leader. One party member voices her misgivings.
Many of us secretly whisper our doubts on Helligren's sanity. This labyrinth chase through the passes has no point. Why don't we merely summon great clouds of black mana and be done with this foolish errand? But Helligren will have none of it. He claims to hear our deceased monarch and seek counsel from that mistress to beasts, Thersia, the very one who failed our lord in the Great War. Would that Helligren could hear the voices of his own kind. Beasor, Weather Witch of Taros.
Thersia and the Cult of Loken now reach the culmination of their quest and behold a vast Creon research facility filling the heart of an extinct volcano. Thersia at last confides in Helligren, as he recounts later in his memoirs.
Thersia turned to me and admitted she knew well of my quest for the bottle. Before the end of the Great War, Loken himself gave her his artifact, Angvir's Flame, a golden scepter with a Mogrite stone at its center. But then she informs me that the scepter, if placed against the soul bottle, actually has the power to restore Loken from the dark place where he dwelt. I am thunderstruck. The voices in my head are riotous. My long quest for King Loken must be nearly done. Helligren, Priest Captain, Cult of Loken.
Revivication without the presence of the original body was considered a dangerous and heretical practice, even among the most evil mage priests of Taros. But first, Thersia and the cult must reach the bottle at the heart of the bizarre Creonite facility. The Cult of Loken fulfilled their dark quest, and their sovereign walked once more in this world. A verse from the Bard of Elam recounts Loken's first words upon his return to the living.
All is lost, that all may gain again. In faith, this iron bane of Taros and all Darien upon this stormy resurrection day shall suffer grievous for its policy. An end so like death, as if never was. Loken, necromancer of Taros.
Loken had rejoined the living, but surrounded by Creonite enemies. For how long? Centuries earlier, Garakaios had been in an unusually contemplative mood.
My adopted country has been victorious in battle and grown strong. I am pleased, and yet, for all their fractious quarreling, I miss my children. Perhaps someday they will come to visit my new home. Garakaios, first sage of Creon.
Inside the walls of his capital, the current sage of Creon grew frantic.
Fire wagons to flanks! Where's the 3rd Trooper Regiment? And where's the enemy? Curse these mage-soaked demons! They're using this superstitious pap to cloak themselves from view! Menelaus, 27th Sage of Creon.
The first children of Garakaios had come at last to Creon. Creon's early victories were disheartening to Elson, But reinforcements arrived through the caverns of Bis and poured into the vicinity of Attis, the capital of Creon, in ever-increasing numbers. That evening, an entourage approached that would give Elson great relief. Elson, rejoice! I have arrived at last in your hour of need, even as you aided me at Caura. Let us toast to the defeat of our common enemy, Karenna, Mage Queen of Varuna. The merriment was short-lived. Brother and sister retired to plan the final siege of Attis. Soldiers would march at dawn. The outer shell of Creon's defenses was cracking, but the core remained resolutely defiant. But then a new force arrived by air to join forces with Elson and Karenna, one totally unexpected and unforetold.
The tent smelled of civilization. A putrid mixture of perfumes, soaps, and over-seasoned broth stews. The Lord of Arrogance and the Queen of Seaweed made no attempt to hide their contempt of me, nor I them. But since I found that this new Iron Plague was even worse than their pretentious prattle, I pledged with their purpose, and Locken's efforts as well. The rest, as they say, is history. Thersha, Huntress of Zon.
The united armies of Aramon, Varuna, and Zon were arrayed against a solemn yet determined sage of Creon.
Now they fly at me as well? With these hosts of winged horrors? So be it! We'll be scraping them off the wings of our flying machines like the overgrown sowbugs they are! Menelaus, 27th Sage of Creon!
And so the family reunited for the final assault.
So we are pulled together once again by the irresistible magnet of self-interest. Under my direction, you will
Your direction? Do not forget that it was your own meddling that brought these invaders.
Thersha, had you not sided with Locken in the Great War, we never would have needed the gunpowder that Creon provided.
Yes, that turned out quite well, did it not? Now let us pinch tight our noses and enter the fray conjoined in familial bliss. A touching portrait for Father Gerachaius.
The future of the world now hung in perilous balance. War's end would come not cheaply, nor quickly, nor mercifully. Creon was broken. The four monarchs cautiously approach an elaborately ornate crypt. The Creonites realized their founder was once a mage wizard. The rulers of Darien discovered they had almost been destroyed by the final ambition of their own father. Creonites became more isolated and less certain about carrying the religion of science to the unenlightened. They withdrew their expeditionary force from Darien and destroyed the Creonite entrance to the caverns of Bis in a titanic explosion. Back in Darien, the four monarchs had much to do. Karenna, chastened but ever eager for a chance for profit, began regular trade with the restive, brooding land of Creon. Locken returned to Taros, but none of his siblings trusted that death had softened his nature. Thersha melted back into the wilds of Zon and raised up even more nightmare creatures to guard her privacy. And Elson returned to put down the remnants of rebellion, outwardly unchanged but inwardly shaken, wondering whether Gerachaius would ever truly be gone from his life. The words found carved on the crypt in Creon gave him cold comfort.
At last I lie, neath bitter stone, perforce at rest. I rot in magic and in iron 2 mighty lands, though in the end all vanishes beneath time's sands. In life anew, inequities shall be redressed. Gerachaius, Mage Emperor of Darien, first Sage of Creon.